So I have been given a green signal from my colleagues from Niti Aayog that we can start the session. Considering that all of us are busy, including you are busy with your other daily work, we want to thank you for taking time for joining, especially the panelists and also the participants. So let me begin by saying good morning to everyone. I'm KD Maiti. I formerly worked with the Government of India as an officer of Indian Statistical Service for more than 25 years. And then in 2011, I joined UNICEF and I retired from there last year. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone to this first DMUO panel discussion as a part of the National Conference for Monitoring, Evaluation, Learning towards Sustainable Development. In this session, we will deliberate upon various aspects and importance of localization of outcome monitoring. Over the past few years, as we all know, government has made numerous efforts to adopt and localize various monitoring frameworks. For example, the results framework document. I remember when I was in government, we used to prepare this RFD, the National Indicator Framework for SDG monitoring, output outcome monitoring framework, etc., mainly with the purpose to measure the national development. The monitoring frameworks contribute immensely in the rationalization of the constrained resources that we have in our country. At the same time, it also gives us an opportunity for an optimum utilization of the limited resources that we have. Way back in 2005 and 6, the framework was initiated by Niti Aayog, and I'm happy to mention that now almost every ministry at the national level are producing their output monitoring tool and are being presented in the parliament. DMUO since 2017 has endeavored to institutionalize outcome monitoring and support it through this particular tool, which is broadly based on the log frame approach to make the entire process of public expenditure accountable as also transparent. Many of us currently, we know the framework is developed, as I said, every year for almost close to 70 central ministries and departments for more than 500 central sector and centrally sponsored schemes of the government with nearly 6,000 indicators. And all these are developed in close consultation with the concerned ministries and departments. And I'm also very happy to note that this particular mechanism is gradually moving into the states and the UT's governance structure. It is thus imperative at this moment that we take the next logical step, that is of strengthening outcome monitoring at the local level, at the community level. Now, we all understand it pretty well that it is that level that where you have to really strengthen it, because that's the building block. Today's discourse would engage us with leaders and experts to learn from their vast experiences and understand what works and, most importantly, what does not work. The agenda or the brief or the broad objectives is to understand decentralized outcome monitoring, strengthen monitoring ecosystems, what are the enablers and the barriers to the adaptation that is needed to localize this outcome monitoring, and importantly, how do you unpack the potential of technology and innovations that is needed to support this at the local level. Now, we have today, and I say this with a lot of pride and happiness, that we have an eminent, set of panelists for today's discussion. Let me first of all introduce to you Ms. Nadia Rashid. Ms. Nadia is the UNDP Deputy Resident Representative in India and has been my old colleague. She has worked on a range of areas in health, gender, and health issues, representing the organization along with other UN agencies in several fora. We will be hearing from her the experiences that she has gathered on outcome monitoring across different regions, and I also believe we will hear from her the best practices for integrated monitoring system in a federal structure. Our second panelist is Mr. Kunal Kumar. Mr. Kumar is the Joint Secretary and the Mission Director of the Smart Cities Mission in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. He is by profession an electrical engineer graduating from IIT Roorkee. We would like him to enlighten us as to how to integrate the scheme delivery with decentralized monitoring through a robust data ecosystem and the digital systems. Next, we have Mr. Rakesh Ranjan. Mr. Ranjan is an officer of Indian Police Service. He is currently working as a senior consultant in Niti Aayog. Presently, he is the mission director of the Aspirational District Program, which aims at rapid transformation of the selected underdeveloped pockets in India. Mr. Ranjan is also heading a team on creating the Ease of Living Index. Finally, but not the last and not the least also, is we have Dr. Manoj Pant, a very old friend of mine. Dr. Pant has been working with the government of Uttarakhand in the last, for almost 28 years. He has held various senior positions. Currently, he is serving as additional director in the Directorate of Economics and Statistics in the government of Uttarakhand, and also he works as additional CEO for the Center for Public Policy and Good Governance. So before we start this discussion, there are a few small, housekeeping points that we should keep in mind. This particular webinar has been divided into three sections. First of all, the first section will be a briefing by the panelists who are here, the experts, followed by a kind of an in-depth understanding from the experts and the panelists. That session I will facilitate by asking few more additional questions to them. And the third session is about, participants may have few questions. So my colleagues here who are present will help me in facilitating, asking those questions, but please remember that we may not be able to address all the questions, but do send us your questions to Niti Aayog and we shall try and get back to you. The last, but not the least, we will try to keep the time. Every panelist would get 7 minutes, and on the 6th minute, my colleague on the left-hand side, Akhilesh, will try and remind our panelists that you are left with 1 minute. With this, let me invite our first panelist, Ms. Nadia Rashid from UNDP. Over to you, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mighty, and a very good morning to everyone. Mr. Kunal Kumar, Mission Director, Smart Cities at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Mr. Rakesh Ranjan, Mission Director, Aspirational Districts Program at Niti Aayog. Dr. Manoj Pant, Additional CEO, Center for Public Policy and Good Governance in Uttarakhand. I'd like to extend warm greetings from UNDP, and I'm really delighted to be able to join such an esteemed panel as part of the National Conference on Monitoring, Evaluation and Learning. Around the world, countries are increasingly recognizing the importance of evidence-based policies and programs, and working to strengthen monitoring, evaluation and learning systems to improve accountability and use of public resources, as well as in achievement of tangible results. Outcome monitoring systems are a critical measure of performance, as we all know. They help to make programs more efficient and effective, and they help to ensure that we are achieving the intended results for targeted sectors, for targeted communities, and for targeted beneficiaries. Outcome monitoring is therefore an important feature for decision making. And as Mr. Maiti has already outlined, this is essential in helping to inform policy and financial allocations, and it is essential in promoting good governance and transparency. Over many years, India has been a frontrunner in promoting evidence-based planning, budgeting, and monitoring, including through the adoption and application of the output-outcome monitoring framework. This approach has also extended to the implementation and localization of the Sustainable Development Agenda. And for us as UNDP, in our role of supporting integrated solutions to achieve the SDGs, we have been working in close partnership with Niti Aayog at the national level and with finance and planning departments at the state level to advance localization of the SDGs and to help reach people and communities at the last mile. To measure these localization efforts, we're also working with SDG coordination centers in Haryana, in Karnataka, in Nagaland, in Punjab, and in Uttarakhand to localize outcome monitoring. So what I'd like to do is share a little bit of this experience, which I hope will help to contribute to our discussion today. For us, the focus of this effort and this partnership with Niti Aayog and with state governments has been to strengthen state planning and budgetary processes to assist government entities in better monitoring outputs and outcomes and in creating an enabling environment for performance-driven planning and budget processes. In Haryana, at the outset of the state budget sessions, the SDG Coordination Center there publishes annual reports covering all schemes proposed in the budget, as well as the results that they've achieved in the last year. The State Output Outcome Monitoring Framework report details outputs for each specific scheme across all departments, while the State SDG Budget Alignment report outlines outlays which need to be calibrated, taking into account SDG prioritization in the state. In Punjab, the SDG dashboard integrates SDG index data, department SDG aligned schemes data, and the district status on each SDG in a cohesive manner to support informed discourse and policy making. And we will be hearing in this session quite a bit more detail about the work in Uttarakhand, but there in each district, there is support to integrate SDG targets with a local level focus. In Karnataka, local level vulnerability data is being used to improve reach to marginalized people and communities and to help advance the commitment of leaving no one behind when it comes to delivery of public services. So these initiatives have really tailored monitoring approaches in line with state and local priorities. But what they all have in common is that the aim is to really bring greater efficiency in public spending while also seeking to expand the resource envelope for SDG financing. These initiatives have also leveraged tools like SDG output outcome monitoring frameworks, SDG budget allocation reports, SDG dashboards, and district indicator frameworks to support localization efforts. So while much work remains to be done when it comes to, for example, strengthening data collection, building capacities for monitoring, and promoting continuous learning across initiatives and across approaches, these efforts that I've shared today are helping to enable officials and policymakers at different levels to set clear goals and to develop well-defined targets and measures for efficiency, for effectiveness, and for accountability. I hope that these experiences will continue to contribute to the very, very rich dialogue that we have in India and the very rich experience that we have in India on advancing localization of outcome monitoring. And I very much look forward to our discussion and exchange today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nadia. And we will hear more from you. But now, can I invite our next speaker, Mr. Kunal Kumar, to briefly present his topic. Over to you, Mr. Kumar.
Yeah, thank you. And because the control of the presentation is there with your team, I would request them to be prompt on it so that I save time. And my esteemed panelists, and yes, this is a very important topic for us. We acknowledge the importance of outcome monitoring for actually achieving the impacts that government programs desire to achieve, which is why I'm making this presentation on what we have tried to do to be able to measure outcomes within the Smart Cities program. May I go to the next slide, please? So the Smart Cities mission is a program across 100 cities. We do not have any standard template of smart cities. Each city has, through its own stakeholders, defined its own template. And there are close to 5,000 projects across the country which are being implemented for over $27 billion. Go next. And it's a very diverse set of cities, size-wise, population-wise, smart city proposal size-wise. You see this, cities are from all categories of population, as in the pie on the left side. And we see there are multiple sources of funding which are coming in also. There's huge amount of PPP, there are debt, loans, others, convergence, and 45% is all that is coming from government. Next. And if you see, there was a very prominent report done in 2011, the HPEC report on urban infrastructure investment. And almost the sectors that were talked about in that report are mirrored in the way the Smart Cities mission is implementing projects. On the left is the projects being implemented, on the right is what the HPEC proposed, and this almost a complete match. Next. And today, as we speak, we've completed projects worth about 60,000 crores, and work of around another 1,20,000 crores is ongoing on ground. So we are very close to achieving, and by the way, the mission targets have to be achieved by June 2023, and we are confident that we are on track. And a large part of that is because we've been able to monitor progress through effective means. Next. And if you see, we will be at the moment, we've spent about 45,000 crores of the government money, which is half of what we have to spend, about 90,000 crores. And by end of March 23, this has been an S curve. We would have spent something like 80,000 crores of government of India and government grants for for the implementation of the mission. Next. And some of the projects, a lot of technology deployment in cities which came to very good use during COVID. So all the city war rooms, as we speak, even today are functional. Some of them are now managing the vaccination program, but they were very active COVID war rooms, and all these technology investments really came to good use. Next. If you see the next picture, this is an all ability park in Visakhapatnam where children of all abilities are invited. And this is a very important picture I have on the right. This is something which is unbelievable in small Indian cities, that all vehicles will be standing behind a zebra line, and a old adult could actually travel the way he is leisurely going across. This is what I call ease of living, and if we can do this across all Indian cities, this is what we are aiming to do. This is one such project. Go next. And if you look at this next one, this is Prayagraj. This year's Kumbh was managed completely by the smart city infrastructure that was laid out in Prayagraj at 1/10 or even lesser of the manpower that was normally deployed in a Kumbh which had maximum participation so far across all Kumbhs. This is what benefits of infrastructure, smart infrastructure is getting. Next. And and this is another floating solar plant in Tirupati, so sustainability is an important component. Next. Now, these are projects, these financial, physical numbers and snapshots, however tall or short, they don't capture the entirety of localized outcomes, which is why we created GMIS, which is a Geospatial Management Information System, which is where we document all, and we've created a tool sort of to monitor localized outcomes. Go next. And this is a snapshot of that tool. I won't spend much time here. This is a system I have already demonstrated at Nidhi and may do a larger demonstration sometime later. Next. Uh, and this is comprehensive. All the projects are geotagged. We can see each of the projects, and these projects have photographs and attribute data coming in from every 3 months. So there's a way we have to ensure that every 3 months this gets populated. There is a strong ranking system we have for states and cities. And if their attribute data and photographs are older than 3 months, their projects don't get picked up for calculation of ranking, which is why without any push from our side, all photographs are actually up to date. And this is a competitive system. It's a dynamic ranking system and connects the micro with the macro, which is very important in outcome measurement. I've realized that unless we have dialogue with the micro constituents and also look at the macro picture, we will never get it right. It's not only about imposing the macro on the micro or the other way around. It's a balance of both. Go next. And this is just another snapshot of the ranking system. The ranking formula is depicted here. Go next. And so we've been able to map all the 7,500 projects to 3 verticals of our mission, which are the projects which are enhancing livability, which are enhancing the economic output, which are enhancing sustainability. And all these have further got linked to SDGs. So which are the projects aligned to which SDGs and so on and so forth. So localization of what you are contributing to SDGs. By the way, we have to remember this was a retrofit. We didn't start with this in the beginning of the mission. It was not thought of. So we've worked backwards, connecting the micro and the macro. Go next. And this is a dashboard. This is the output outcome framework dashboard. This is a real-time, very dynamic dashboard. And you can see the kind of outcomes that are being created beyond the project progress. Go next. I'll just give you some snapshots. So look, if you can look at today, these are just few snapshots. There are about 200 of these snapshots I can give you. So what's the energy that our solar systems have been able to produce? What is the kind of, what are the number of streetlights we've converted to smart streetlights, which are more than 43 lakhs. As you can see, what are the number of patients who are benefiting from health facilities created here? What are the number of households we have covered with smart water meters? What are the households covered under solid waste door-to-door collection systems? Smart classrooms, we've created 5,500 smart classrooms across the smart cities. And these, if you go next slide, and you could look at it for a particular city as well. So this is Ajmer. What are the outputs Ajmer has created? It's created 20 classrooms and all that. And then 108 hospital rooms have been created, 46 kilometers length of sewer pipelines. So each city knows what it has actually delivered through the projects. Go next. And each of these projects, each of the deliverables are then mapped to all the 17 indicators, 17 SDGs. So you have 188 projects going on within the Smart Cities mission on good health and well-being, which is about 1,300 crores. You have 3,300 projects going on quality education, which is about 2,200 crores, and so on. So this linkage is backward and forward integrated, and this is coming in real time, which is what I want to emphasize. And we are very clearly aware of which SDGs and what components we are actually being able to deliver on. Go next. And this you could do with this. If you want to do with the health sector, this is SDG 3. You will get a picture of what we have been able to contribute to SDG 3. Go next. If you look at SDG 4, these are the projects we have been successfully implementing for meeting targets under SDG 4. Go next. And similarly, SDG 6. Go next. And SDG 9. So this is what we've been able to achieve. Go next. Next, please. And as a ministry, we've actually moved towards, the last one. As we've moved towards indices at the broader level, which are again the combination of the micro and the macro. We have done 3 iterations of ease of living index already. Cities are ranked on ease of living index. We've done the municipal performance index twice. We rank municipalities on their performance based on the indicators around it. Swachh Sarvekshan is a 7-year-long exercise. We've ranked cities on data maturity, how they have been able to do well on, work on data. Then Climate Smart Cities is a very active program. Last year, 126 cities got ranked. This time, we are taking on 250 cities for evaluation on the assessment framework. We've created a consultation paper on city GDP, which is something that we are wanting to evangelize very soon, calculating economic output of cities and so on and so forth. Go next. And the portal where we do it is called Amplify, which is the assessment and monitoring platform for livable, inclusive, and future-ready India. This is where all data, and this data we are, by the way, in the process of opening up to people. So everyone in the Indian ecosystem and the world ecosystem will have access to 700 plus points on each of India's cities going forward after 3 months from now. Go next.
We have one minute.
I'm almost through. Our strategies are based on a comprehensive approach of people, processes, and platforms. To just give you one example, 5 years back, we had only one city with a data office. Today, all the 100 cities have data offices. And by the way, it's now going beyond the 100 smart cities. And we've trained them multiple times. Go next. And so we check on what they are delivering through the data maturity assessment. You have a strategy, how well you're implementing is assessed by this assessment framework, and each of them do it voluntarily, and we do it one cycle centrally from here also. Go next. And all our cities are on open data. We are the biggest contributors to the data.gov portal of Government of India. And if you look today, there are more than 5 lakh plus downloads. Go next. We have our own data lab. This is within the ministry where we have strong software capabilities of working on evidence-based policy making within the ministry. Go next. And these are the lessons I want to close with. Monitoring of outputs and outcomes is a very important for effective program implementation. We have to start with the micro and zoom out towards the macro, but I'll say this becomes an iterative picture going forward. Capacity building is required, which is where, capacity building of ULBs is one thing, but capacity building of evaluation organizations is another thing. We have to create a network of evaluation organizations across the country. Accountable and robust frameworks should be planned right at the beginning of the program. A lot of investment should be making at integrating it right at the beginning. Sometimes missions are launched in a hurry. It's a political call or maybe administrative call. We need to stop there and look at an accountable and robust framework from the very beginning. Retrofitting is not the best outcome. And let's align outcomes and output both the broader goals and to the citizen aspirations. If the citizen feels that this is not my goal in this city, so be it. We have to recognize that fact. And therefore we have to, constantly be in dialogue with constituents on both sides of the world. Go next. I think that's the last slide. So thank you everyone for listening to me very patiently. Thank you.
Mr. Kumar, and we will come back to you with some more questions. So we will now move on to our next speaker, Mr. Rakesh Ranjan. Over to you, Mr. Ranjan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mati, my fellow panelists, and the participants. Thank you for being part of this program. Generally, the Aspirational District Program, which is a very talked about program in Government of India, is considered to be a very innovative program. And what I would like to do is that I will question some of the things. I will also ask this question. I have some questions for the fellow panelists also, because the stage is already set by Kunal, my friend, that what government can do if the government is efficient. And by the fellow panelist, Nasida, who has also given the importance of the localization. Now, let me ask you one question. First, 1 or 2 minutes, I'll tell you what Aspirational District Program is, because we in government know it very well, but then there are many participants who may not be knowing. So what we decided in 2018, there was an exercise to choose that which are the districts in India which have done relatively badly. All districts improve generally over the years, but which are the districts where socioeconomic parameters have shown relatively less progress? And there are sufficient data available at Government of India level and in the public domain. I think anybody can do this exercise and pick up around 100 or 150 such districts and try to do something with involving every aspect of good governance to improve this district. So we finally picked up around 112 districts. We went to every state except for West Bengal and except for Goa and Puducherry, which are pretty rich state, Goa and Puducherry and Delhi. We went to other states, and in every state we pick up either a group of districts if it is a large state, or at least 1 or 2 districts, even if it is a small state. And we came to a figure of 112. This included around 35 such districts which were identified by Government of India as very severely affected by the Naxal problems. And as such, it has the twin problem of the issue of security as well as the lack of development. So these 112 districts were selected, and that is the Aspirational District Program, where the Government of India, the state government and the local administration came together to see that what can be done to improve the performance of these districts. Now, very broadly, last 4 years that we ran the program, and the program is still continuing, these districts have shown tremendous improvement in many indicators. And the basic architecture of the program is, while it is well known, but let me reiterate, is that the first, it really asked the district administration as well as the central ministries and group of people that what are the indicators, what are the key performance indicators in a district across sectors, which influence the quality of life as well as the economic productivity of people. I mean, these districts are backward districts, so we are not, they are not very urban oriented district. Good number of districts are fairly rural predominance. So we could figure out that there are around 49 such indicators with 81 data points, which are really relevant to a very large number of people in the district. And these, I think, almost everybody. And these sectors are health and nutrition, school education, financial inclusion, agriculture and water resource management, skill development, and basic infrastructure. So these key performance indicator and can move ahead of these districts can do something. And these districts show a tremendous improvement over what they have done. Then I think we have succeeded. And this is what this program has shown for the last 3 to 4 years. There is a very recorded evidence of this done by UNDP, done by from Harvard and from India. And there is an evidence that, yes, these districts have shown a remarkable improvement in these indicators. So the question that I have for people is that while we consider that it is important to localize, in our opinion, there must be two buckets. The first bucket is that there are certain things which are universally required. Health is universally required, nutrition is universally required, school education is universally required. While the local administration, while we understand the importance of decentralization.
Your voice is cracking. Your voice is cracking. So just give us a second. Is it a problem here? At that end? I think there is some internet problem at your end. No, we can't hear you.
So I will stop the video and see that it is. Is it all right now?
So you can start again and let's hear. Let's hear you.
Yes, I mean, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better. Yes, please. No, we can't hear you.
So you can go to the fourth panel.
No, we can't hear you clearly.
Go to the fourth panel.
Just hold on. Shall we move on to the next panelist and then we come back to you, Mr. Ranjan?
Yes, by all means.
Yeah, thank you. So this is just a technical glitch. We'll come back to Mr. Ranjan again. In the meantime, can I request Dr. Pant to make his points on the topic that he wants to speak? Over to you, Dr. Pant.
Okay, thank you very much. So good morning to all of you. And first of all, I am grateful to the DMEO Niti Aayog for providing me this opportunity to share my views on localization of outcome monitoring, what we are doing in our state and what we have done so far and what is our futuristic plan. So thank you DMEO, thank you Niti Aayog. So as far as, next please. Next slide please. As far as the institutional mechanism is concerned for the many purposes, so just you can see under the Department of Planning, we have 3 cells for the monitoring and evaluation. The first is 20-point program cell. It is one of the oldest cell. And another is MNE, and the Center for Public Policy and Good Governance is also there. It was established about 4 years before. So as far as the 20-point program cell is concerned, so I think most of you know about it. It is one of the oldest cell, which is basically the main task of this cell is to do the output-based monitoring. And the beauty of this cell is that we have 3 level committees: the state level committee, district level committees, and the block level committees. And these committees are chaired by the senior level, I mean, the senior public representative. So as far as the state level committee, though it is chaired by the Honorable Chief Minister, but the vice chairman is also a cabinet minister level public representative. And in addition of these public representative, the government officials, the civil societies people, NGOs, the educationists and academicians are also the member of these committees. And the main role of this committee is to review the progress, whatever programs are going on, whatever progress they are giving to the department, they are reviewing this progress first, and then fortnightly, even the monthly, and even quarterly also. But in addition of this regular review, they are also supposed to visit the field, whatever data they are getting from the departments and data list, and they used to visit the field to verify, to validate this data also. So this is the beauty of this committee. And whatever feedback we received from these committee members, so we communicated this feedback to respective department, and accordingly, it is supposed to make the course correction whatever required by the department. So this is one of the oldest system. What we have done right now, because you all know these SDGs are going on, and we as a Center for Public Policy and Good Governance, we are supposed to monitor all the SDGs at the state level. But at the local level, for the district level and the block level, we have assigned this task to these committee members also. So this is one thing which we have done, because right now at the government of India level, I think the 20-point program monitoring is not being done. So second is the M&E cell. So this is also one of the small cell under the Department of Planning. So the main task of this cell is to do the monitoring and evaluation. And about more than 2,000 schemes we have, but just you can see only the 2 to 3 programs we are evaluating annually. Since the inception of the state, about 50 to 60 programs have been evaluated. So though we get the outcome result by evaluation of different schemes, but it is not sufficient. And third is the Center for Public Policy, and as I have already mentioned about it. So though we are providing the policy level input to the government, but SDG monitoring is also one of the major tasks of these centers. And we have already developed the SDG monitoring tool with the support of UNDP. And next, please. And we have also identified, next, please. We have also identified the different indicators, SDG indicators, and the state level indicators has already been identified, district level, local level indicators. And just you can see you can see 125 district indicators framework is there. And out of these, 75 are the outcome indicators. And annually, we are constructing the SDG index. And we have also district-wise SDG index. And but somehow we think that we have to monitor these SDGs regularly, particularly the monthly basis, we have to monitor these SDGs. So we identified 35 indicators for the monthly review of these SDGs. So though recently the Ministry of Panchayati Raj Department, Panchayati Raj has identified about 338 local indicator framework. So I think this is one of the system where we can address the local level, because Panchayat Department, the Panchayati Raj Ministry is also formulating the Gram Panchayat Development Plan, Block Development Plan, and the District Development Plan. And the local indicator framework is also there. If we map this indicator framework to their plan, so I think it would be great for the monitoring system at the local level, at the Panchayat level even. Next, please. So this is our monitoring tool, SDG monitoring tool, as I have already said. This is based on the 125 indicators, 143 indicators it is right now. And district-wise ranking is there, SDG-wise ranking is there. So it is available at our website and anybody can see. It is in a public domain. Next, please. So these are some way ahead for reliable outcome-based monitoring. So we think the M&E system can be, should be strengthened, and it can be strengthened if we have to make some M&E policy also. I think it is missing somehow. perhaps the Kerala and the Karnataka has some policy, and we have framing this M&E policy, because as I have already said, only 2 to 3 schemes we are evaluated annually. So we are proposing that it should be mandatory to every department to evaluate at least 1 to 2 schemes through the hybrid
We
model.
have one more minute.
Yeah, definitely, sir.
Please wrap up in 1 minute.
Yeah, second. Yeah. The second is the data validation protocol manual, which should also be there. So it is important. Whatever data we are receiving from the field, it should be validated. But there is no any methodology to validate this data system. So we are planning to develop this manual, data validation protocol manual. And third is the rationalization of a scheme. As I have already mentioned, 2000 plus schemes are available. But for the effective monitoring and evaluation system, we should rationalize these schemes also. So we have taken this task under the World Bank sponsored UK PFMS project. And though we have an output-outcome framework also, but we have also taken this task under this UK PFMS project because we are planning to develop the RFD also. Result framework document should also be developed. So this is our plan. But last but not least, already the SDG monitoring framework has developed, the monitoring tool has developed. So we are planning to customize this SDG dashboard for block and GP level SDG monitoring. So this is the holistic approach, what we want to do in a M&E system in our state. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we will come back to you, Dr. Pant. Now we have Mr. Rakesh Ranjan here with us in the same hall. We would request him to continue from where he started. So you will have 5 minutes.
Well, a very good afternoon to all of you. I was just describing that what were the basic feature and the objective of the aspirational district program. And in very, very brief, in nutshell, it attempts to improve the governance in the backward pockets in India by focusing on the indicators which matter in the life of the people and also improve their economic productivity. And it does it by a tool. There are 2 tools which are very important for this. One tool is that it stimulates the competition among the district team. That if you're doing, it encourages the district team that compete with each other, and those who do well, they are very well recognized, and those who do badly, they are also shown that your performance is not very great. And this competition, the basis of the competition is the progress made by them and not the legacy. The second is that it is, which is part of the first strategy, is that there is a real-time monitoring framework which helps the district administration to monitor these progress across 81 data points and 49 indicators across the sectors. So the important point that I need to pose here is that when we look at delocalization and look at the outcome, we have to ask 2 questions. One is that is the outcome that we are addressing is universal, or is the outcome is a region or the state or a district specific? Now, there are very, very important things in both the buckets because there are a lot of things which can be done all across the world, all across this nation, all across the region. And there, that is a simpler part because then the monitoring framework, the governments of all levels can come together, as in the case of aspirational district. One of the reasons that why we pick up the 81 data points and we don't want to pick up many more is because these data points have to be relevant to all 112 districts in a very important way. So the first bucket is easier. This is what the aspirational district program does. The second bucket, where there is a regional flavor, where there is a district flavor, and where there is a block flavor. And I will also go to the extent that where there is a household flavor. And therefore, it is fairly important that we must have a system in which we first ascertain that what exactly is the requirement. And I think that over the years, the march of the governments all across the world, and especially and also in India, is to ascertain that what exactly the household want, not only from the sitting from our own perspective, but asking the household that what exactly you want. And that is the most important fundamental governance change that one is trying to bring. Now, the question that is asked is that under aspiration district program, how do you attempt to do this? Now, there are two aspects that we do. We are always asked this question, that suppose the district is doing very badly in health indicator and one other district is doing well. So what do? Do you improve the district? Do you kind of tell the district what to be done? Our answer is no, we don't tell the district what to be done, because we feel that the district administration and the people there know it fully well that what needs to be done. All that we tell them is that please move ahead and see that what your neighbors have done. The second one is that what we feel is that we involve the community leader, the NGO and the philanthropist, and we have seen that there is a major improvement and good response if we are able to get a system of NGOs and volunteers to work with the government and talk to every household and look at their emerging need. This was one of the things which we did with the Piramal Foundation, and this is a normal thing that I would like, that any question of localization must have this concept that you must ascertain from the people that whom you want to govern that what exactly they want, what they feel about the government program, and how they feel that that can be done better. The second one is that a district, I have only very less time. The second one is the strength of each district. So there is a very requirement of a very clever formulation of the indicators that cover the vagaries and the strength of the local area, but at the same time can be formulated and can be helped at the national level. That's a fairly difficult task, and our attempt is to look into this. One is an obvious thing, if you lead to the economic development of this thing, whatever method that comes, as long as the cat catches mice, it doesn't matter what color it is. So what district, what product, if the district is doing well in a particular product, if you have the indicator that whether have you improved the performance, the economic activity of the economic lot of the household in a period of a minimum period of time, then I think that is the governance reform that we are looking forward to. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I personally feel there are lots of questions which I have personally to ask you. Maybe I will take another time from you and have more discussions on that. But, I have to thank all the panelists for giving their point of view, and very, very succinctly they have given their point of view. And that brings us to the end of the first phase of this webinar. We now move on to the second phase. The second phase is where some more in-depth understanding from the panelists on the topics that they have picked up. So with your permission, let me put a question to Nadia. So for Nadia, so what we do is that we will try and accommodate 2 questions from each of the panelists. And I will go around and have 1 question first from each of the panelists, and then if there is time, then we'll come back for the second question. For me, most important question to Nadia would be, what are the advantages of aligning the state budgets? You mentioned about the importance of outcome monitoring and how it feeds into the budget, and it adds to the transparency and efficient utilization of the resources. The question is, what are the advantages of aligning the state budgets with the SDG goals, and how they can be an instrument of achieving the goal of leaving no one behind, which is largely a very interesting topic, very difficult one. I know that, but let's hear your point of view on this question. Over to you, Nadia.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Always pleasure to listen from you. Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Mighty, and also really it was a pleasure to hear all my fellow panelists. I think there was a lot of interesting issues that came up, and also a lot of alignment in some of the experiences. But coming back to your question, the SDG agenda is quite a unique agenda. It's an agenda that, as we mentioned, is one that is universal. It applies to different levels of governance. It applies to different geographies. It brings it brought in quite a change in looking at development dynamics in terms of very much advocating for not only an approach that is a whole of government approach that looks at linkages and contributions across government, but also a whole of society approach with a very strong citizen-centric focus, as was described by Mr. Ranjan on the aspirational districts, and also with a very strong private sector focus. So really one of the advantages of budgeting according to the SDGs is that firstly, these are universal goals that have been prioritized, that have been adopted across countries. And by budgeting, by linking budgets to the SDGs, it really allows for a prioritization in terms of measurement of development impact. And it allows us to measure local impact in a way that actually links to the national and global language. And Mr. Ranjan was also touching on this when he talked about, this issue of needing to ensure that we are addressing local needs going down to the household level, while also working within a national and a global context that sets up this framework for what we are trying to achieve. So the SDG-based budgeting allows us to monitor based on very clear performance indicators. It allows us to monitor based on very clear reach to target beneficiaries, particularly keeping in mind this focus of reaching those who are furthest behind, reaching those who are most marginalized. It also allows us to look at issues around cost efficiency, trade-offs when it comes, and understanding some of the trade-offs when it comes to various development indicators, understanding linkages between various development indicators. How can we look at improving efficiencies? How can we look at improving effectiveness? How can we look at improving accountability? And with SDG-based budgeting, we also have very clear ownership defined. It allows us to define very clear ownership in terms of who is accountable for results at different levels, and how can we, and ensuring that actually we can help to track these key performance indicators, linking these to the very clear ownership. So increasingly what we're seeing in countries around the world is that not only government systems are moving and experimenting with linking budgeting to SDG indicators, outputs, outcomes, but we're also seeing, as we heard from Mr. Kunal, that also from a private sector perspective, increasingly many private sector actors are really seeing the benefits of aligning their investments, their work, their financing to the SDG framework, because it does allow this very clear approach to prioritizing targets, to focusing on the most vulnerable and those who are furthest behind, and at the same time contributing and feeling that we are very much living in this interconnected development world with these interconnected development priorities that are quite complex, where each sector has a role to contribute. So let me stop here for the moment, but I think this is a very important approach where we are also seeing a lot of innovation and a lot of growth in recent years.
Thank you. I do understand that it's a very difficult task, given the financing architecture that we have, which is depending upon what kind of revenue and how robust is the revenue collection, given all kinds of challenges that you are facing, the volatility of the financing system, it becomes difficult to really align your budgets to the SDG goals, and more so because SDG goals require multi-dimensional approach to really reach those goals. So it is difficult. But I remember my working in UNICEF, many states have started doing a little differently. What they are doing is, you have a budget allocation, and that they are desegregating to different goals. And thereby you can probably collate and see how much of the budget has gone into each of the goal achievement processes or mechanisms. That has started in many states. Like I know Odisha, Maharashtra, and many other states are trying. You have the annual budget, but then you disaggregate into the different schemes and programs which maps into a particular SDG goal. So it's a difficult one, but I think there are advantages of aligning the SDGs to the state budget. I will now come to Mr. Kunal Kumar, from whom we heard very interesting progress that the country has made and some of the activities which he is doing at the ministry level. My first question to him would be, the outcomes are generally very difficult to achieve. It takes long years to really achieve some of the outcomes. And especially in a country like ours with a diverse population, diverse economic conditions of the people and all that, do you think there is a challenge to the delivery and achievement of intended goals in this country? And how would you, link this outcome monitoring to performance-linked budgeting and the financing decisions? Many times, as you also showed in one of your slides, the amount of money that the government of India and the state governments are investing, how do you think this outcome monitoring can contribute to a performance linked budgeting?
Okay, sir. I'll start from one of the examples to just exemplify probably how we looked at it in a particular program that we initiated. Smart Cities mission is a bunch of programs. So one of the key programs that we have within the Smart Cities mission is the Climate Smart Cities program. So when we look at data and when we wanted to start the program, we were, bombarded with all the knowledge that comes from all over the world on climate. Climate seems to be, one of the favorite topics for people to talk about, but hardly anyone has an idea of how to actually make inroads on talking about it and making action on ground possible. So we then used data to actually figure out how do we demystify what working on climate in a city would mean. And this was an extensive exercise altogether. This brought in national, international people, representatives from states and cities, community building organizations, and everyone, when we created a framework. This framework would help us align Indian cities. And this is a flexible framework we can keep working on it. So that's the first part. So that's probably the visualize part. Then is the values part. The second V, which I say, is where what is it that we want to aspire for as a community? Do we want to aspire for something that is better mobility? Somebody else wants to aspire for a crime-free city. Every city has a different goal, which is where the universal and the micro has to be. The universal goal is important, but the micro has to get more priority because the local stakeholders, where the localization is happening, are more brought into that idea, and for very good reasons, because the local demands more focus on that aspect. And so that the value-driven engagement then leads to the second point, which is where action, what action needs to be taken emerges, where the third V, which is the verdict, which is the action. Now, as Rakesh sir was saying, you look at the data and then subsequently you let the cities learn from each other or the districts learn from each other. We have actually adopted a different approach. What we say is, for data for visualization is fine. Post that, we need a 3P approach, which is both people, process, platform, and public-private partnership. People, process, platform, in a sense, look at how we handle this climate thing. We created the visualization framework, we created the indicator set, we shared it among cities. They know which city is doing better than the other on various parameters, chiseled down to very micro details. And then we created something called the climate cities within our National Institute of Urban Affairs. This Climate Center for Cities is now deepening dialogue, and as we speak, it has created extensive modules of engagement with each of the cities on all the indicators. Then it has started podcasts, it has started conferences, it has started newsletters, it has started case studies, it has started research on action that is happening on cities. So that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is how you look at bringing in other partners. We know the climate exercise is huge, so we have created what we call the Climate Smart Cities Alliance, where about 100 odd partners from India are working together with cities to transform the situation, the gaps that emerge from the assessment framework. So it's partnerships, it's actually processes, it's platforms. Investments have to go into 360 degrees in multiple areas, and only then we will succeed in changing the story if we really want to. Just by merely creating a data system and just by creating a ranking, we will not achieve that. The second thing on outcome-based approach, which you talked about, is the funding approach. There's a paper I had written last year, which I had circulated, in fact, also to Niti and other parts of government. One of the things that I realize is that there is a disbelief in Government of India in going towards outcome-based funding. It seems almost impossible, and the pushback you get is that there are weak states and weak cities which will not be able to get enough money for development if you measure them through an outcome-driven framework. I think counterintuitively, that's actually that cohort of states and cities which will benefit the most, because from there, through adversity, will come the greatest ideas, which will push better outcomes. Because getting an outcome in a city like Pune is much difficult, but getting an outcome in a smaller city like Namchi in Sikkim or somewhere else is much easier, because their base is very low, and therefore they will basically benefit more from outcome-based funding than other places. But I think that dialogue has to be pushed forward from the DMEO in Niti. I think that's the central fulcrum where this should emerge from. And even recent missions that have been announced and approved are largely only giving lip service to outcome-based funding, though they talk about it, but they actually don't base money release based on outcomes. We are trying that. Now, as I said, climate as an example, so we moved ahead and looked at how do we now fund cities on climate based on outcome. So we've closed the loop on capacity building, we closed the loop on research, we closed the loop on partnerships, we've closed the loop on engagements in the community building organizations and data frameworks, and now we're looking at funding. So we're partnering up with AFD and KFW to create a small $200 million program. But I needed that program to come from outside, because creating that belief within the Indian ecosystem to actually go for a program on outcome was lacking. So I've used that as a template, and we're creating an outcome-based funding program there. I have a PIB meeting on 23rd. Hopefully the program gets approved, and once it gets approved, that will be the first climate finance in India, a $200 million grant, a loan from these two institutions to actually implement on outcome-based financing. So what I'm saying is we have to look systemic. We have to engage all stakeholders. We have to engage people whose lives depend on the assessment frameworks that we are talking about. By no means it can be all universal. It has to be bottom up. And the universal, I think, emerges from micro motives leading to macro behavior. That's what I think actually happens. And specifically in cities with as dynamic ecosystems that Indian cities have, we have to guard against implementing universal solutions. Even if we feel that the city needs water but doesn't have water, the city's priority is something else, we have to at some stage say, yes, this is what we want to go with because this is your priority. So these are things, and of course we have to understand the Goodhart's law also. I think it plays out in a lot of ways. The kind of performance rewards and the kind of funding that rides on measurement systems actually distorts and creates gaming of performance assessment systems, which is where we have seen very difficulties in actually engaging with cities. So there is a balance in how much you use the measurements that you create for informed debate, for engagement, and how much you use that and go ahead and actually start to put funding on top of it and maybe rewards on top of it. That leads to distortions, which is to be very carefully observed. And we need to step steps one by one. It cannot be a one size fits all solution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I wish we had more time, because I also have certain questions on how this output outcome monitoring, which probably I will not be able to discuss this here. Maybe on a separate forum we have to discuss it. that how are you using this outcome monitoring framework, to build your infrastructure for smart cities, and how do you utilize that in a localized framework? That means how is it done from bottom-up approach, and what kind of monitoring are you engaging yourself or your ministry is engaging in monitoring those projects which are happening, say at the block level or the below block level? That's where what you are intending to take this outcome monitoring to. But we will come to that if we have more time. But thank you very much for your response. I would like now come back to Mr. Ranjan, and his topic is very interesting because it touches heart of everyone, the social sector that he's addressing. So my question to him would be, from your experience of handling this, aspirational district program, how do you think outcome monitoring can be integrated with the delivery of government schemes? You are collecting information. You said you are also doing a bit of indexing, and you have created a competition among the district. The districts are also learning. Has it contributed to improve delivery of government schemes in these, a bit of backward districts? And how will this help in making delivery more efficient? When I say efficient, it is not only reaching them, but reaching them in the most efficient way, as we talk in an evaluation parlance.
Well, I have a complaint to make to the chair that why do you ask the most difficult question? So
yours is very, very interesting area, sir.
But at the same time, let me answer some of the things. First and foremost is that when it comes to delivery of the outcome and that we want to do through the government scheme, that is the business in which we are. Entire governance is basically delivery of the outcome. We are not here for certain input indicators and then do that. We have done the work and we have gone home. No. So our work is that if a child is stunted, what can a government system do, even in a mixed economy where a large part of expenditure on health is a household expenditure? What can a government do? And here is an angle between the life of the poorer population set of population and the richer set of population. What can the government do for the poorer set of population that certain outcome can improve? And in my opinion, most of the government schemes which Aspirational District Program is focusing upon and which are social sector scheme are intended to improve the outcomes. So the question that if the scheme somehow improve the district health center, district health or district hospital, if the labor room of the health centers are of the Lux standards, if we are looking at the monitoring the indices like whether there are 4 visits of the A&M worker to the household of the pregnant woman or not, if we are looking at the different kind of indicators which are very easily correlated with the outcome and improve these procedural indicators by the power of the competition and the real-time monitoring, then I think the government scheme is meant for delivery of the outcome. The question here is very important, sir. And that question is that the government is not God. So if we think that we are going to improve everything, that's not possible. So we must realize that how much we have thought of certain instruments that I'm going to improve the pregnancy, I'm going to improve the health of the maternal health through these schemes. Now, there must be a very, very objective assessment, which is evaluation, that whether the tools that the government has picked up are the best provided the money that we have or not. So the question is that we are focusing on monitoring fine, but there is, and this is the call to the academic body and to the research institutions, that you look at the government instruments and see that whether these instruments are capable of providing that outcome or not. That is very important, sir. And that kind of feedback that it comes to the government system, then it helps us in fine-tuning the outcome as such in the government program. Because it's quite possible that the outcome might have improved because of something else. And we keep on associating it or correlating it with something that we have done in the government scheme. So it is very, very important for us to have a very constant monitoring and here evaluation, and here the evaluation should be with the local research bodies. Because to get the research body from IITs or from IIMs or from the centralized body is fine. But at the same time, you need to have the local universities involved, the local think tanks involved, the local people involved to understand that whether, yes, fine, we have reduced the anemia in this particular district. See, look at the NHFS. NHFS 5 and 4 will tell you the strange of the degree of the variation that is between the districts in removing the anemia. In some state it has deteriorated, in some district it has improved considerably. Now the question therefore is that the government system needs a feedback from the academia and from the research in terms of evaluation that what is the instrument that you have used which has worked and what is the instrument that you have used even if efficiently it has not worked. So therefore, as I said, as far as the task of the government is concerned, we are there for improvement in the outcome, not there for the improvement in input. And therefore, it is, as I said, the competition, it is important thing to choose that what indicator you compete on. In a short run, you can compete on the input indicator, in the short run, yes. But in the long run, which you take a year or so, I mean, I dispute one of the academic debate that in nutrition and health cannot be improved in 6 months' time. I just dispute it because we have seen it that if you really improve the indication, if you really improve the inputs in terms of this, then the nutrition standards can improve within the 6 month times. The learning outcome can improve within 1 year time. So this, our survey for 5 years or 4 years actually is not very helpful. It must be a survey at a much lesser interval, much more frequent interval, because it is very important. See, for a district administration or for the health secretary of a state, it is very important to know that what he or she has done has resulted in an outcome or not. This feedback loop has to be built properly in the government system. The aspiration district program attempt to do that. I mean, I have a severe fight with the education ministry, with the health ministry. How can you think of changing the monitoring the outcome of a stunting in 3 months' time? But the answer is that in the government system, try to develop this habit that I am going to measure my improvement over the period of 3 months' time or 6 months' time, because after 1 year, the collector will change. So therefore, the answer to is that yes, the evaluation part is very, very important at the local level, and we involve the local knowledge in that, which can tell us that whether these instruments used by the governments are the optimal or not. But because the objective of the government is to improve the outcome and not of the input.
Thank you. Very interesting. And yes, there is a big debate whether nutrition of a child, especially indicators like wasting or stunting, can change in a short period of time. But I do also appreciate that government being the provider in terms of services, in terms of cash, other things, wants to know quickly whether things are happening or not happening. It's very, very important for any government to understand what they're doing. Is it fructifying into some kind of a result? That brings me to a small question. Knowing that these aspirational districts are challenging, and it is difficult to reach some of these districts and the population within the district because they will be very diverse, dispersed, all kinds of things. Should there be a uniform set of parameters for the schemes? For example, I can take an example, say Matritva Vandana Yojana, because you talked about maternal health. Now, should the parameters of a scheme, example, I have taken Matritva Vandana Yojana, should that be same for all these 112 districts? Because there are challenges, should the parameters be different, much easier, closer to the people? Then that is for a district like Pune or Chennai or West Bengal, any other state. So something that is something I thought it came to my mind. Yeah, I can see that time is short, but I will run it quickly.
I'll be very brief, sir. And this is a very big debate, but I'm glad that you raised it. There are issues which people say that in NHFS 5, if the indicators are such, there can be an Indian-specific or there can be a region-specific benchmarks. But I think the expert world over says that on certain matters, the universal WHO benchmark is fine with us. And therefore, as far as the target, the utopia case is concerned, the utopia system, the target is concerned, the target is known to us that we have to reach here. So it is possible, as I said, I made this difference between the beginning, that there can be an indicator which are universal, and these indicator universal can be same for all district, for all region, but there can be, yes, the local flavor. The local flavor are in two ways. One is the set of indicators which are not relevant for a particular district or a particular region, and set of indicators which are very relevant. Look at the water-starved region and the water-rich region. The indicators which pertain to water conservation may not be very important for the water-rich region as it is for the water-starved region. So there are indeed many of the regional as well as the district level indicators. One of the practical difficulty come, and that's why what you said was that it is a phase 2 of our program where we are kind of look at some of the local indicators and try give district some of the values to that so that they can come in competition. But it is fundamentally very difficult to design a program where you look for competition on a different set of indicators. It's not easy. So what we have done is that we have done the part where we have emphasized more on the universal part of it. What flexibility, what we have brought is that we didn't ask the people or the district that how do you want to improve your health outcome? No, we didn't ask them. Neither we want to tell them that what this is done in Assam. We can tell them that yes, if this is done in Assam, you can very well do it in Maharashtra. No. We have shown them that yes, it is possible that Assam has done it, but left it on the district administration. But we keep on saying if your improvement is not taking place, you are among the worst. And if your improvement is taking place, you are the best. So that is an important thing where we can show that what is good thing done in one area, but then whether it is 100% applicable or not, we leave it at the wisdom of the district administration. So it's quite possible, but it is important to emphasize on the universalities of certain indicators and say that yes, you have to reach here. And that is, I don't think, sir, that whether it is Manipur, the children education, the learning outcomes should be exactly, maths and English must be exactly, I mean, the goal is similar to that, what it is in Maharashtra. So I don't see much difference in that. But yes, in terms of resources, in terms of the strength of a district, and in terms of the opportunities of a district, there will be huge difference. And that is a challenging part of it, to define certain indicators and see that how we can move towards that.
Thank you. I now move on to our last panelist, Dr. Pant. Dr. Pant, we do not have much time. I'm sorry about it. So a very quick question to you, and that is on public finance. Now, given the vast nature of this country, both in terms of demography, geography, and other things, all our schemes and programs are implemented at the state level. So state is the building block. If you have to take this outcome monitoring to the local level. Now, for institutionalizing this outcome monitoring at the local level, what do you think should be the kind of capacity building that is required at the state and the below state level? And what, in your appreciation, the support mechanism that is required by the state to really institutionalize at the district, at the block level at least? I'm not going down to the panchayat. That's much complex area. But in your appreciation, what needs to be done? Over to you, sir.
Okay. Yes, I think you should go panchayat also, because as far as our state is concerned, so because we have already identified local level indicators, and recently the panchayat has a very good mechanism of the capacity building, and they are also preparing the local level plan on 29 subjects. And when we talk about the panchayat, we are not talking about only the Gram Panchayat development plan. We are talking about the block plan, and we are talking about the district development plan. So I think because the indicators are there, plan are there, they have already formatted. If we map these plan to these particular indicators, and then the monitoring process can be do regularly. So because the panchayat has its adequate capacity, particularly they have a good fund also. So they are used to do a lot of capacity building to the panchayat. So I think this is the right time when we should talk about the M&E at the local level also. at the district level, because the outcome budget is already framing by the different states, and we are also developing the outcome budget and aligning all the state indicator framework. At the district level, the district development plan is there, district indicator is there. So we have to map this and to develop the capacity of respective officials. So I think the panchayat is one of the important things which we are thinking and which we are doing also. So a lot of panchayats, they are because 6 to 7 years has already gone as far as the SDG is concerned. So now they are also aligning their these SDGs to their plan. So I think this is the right time when we can think about the grassroots level monitoring system. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think the Ministry of Rural Development did come out with a broad guideline in, I think, 2018, when Mr. Sinha was the secretary there. It talks about how do you take the entire SDG monitoring to the Gram Panchayat level. And he says there that if you can take that monitoring to that level, which is the building block for achieving the goals at the district, state, or the national level, you can't have an aggregated view of SDG monitoring if your bottom is vacant. So you have to build it up from Panchayat and take it. But interestingly, thank you that the state is has already started thinking and making efforts in that direction. So I would now come to the last session, which is about moderators concluding session, and I have very small points to make. One is, in this entire tool and the outcome monitoring framework, what we probably need to focus more, and I think Mr. Ranjan also spoke about it, touched upon it, is a strong feedback loop. We do not have at the moment a very strong feedback loop. If you have seen, how the outcome budget is prepared and placed in the parliament, against each allocation there is a target, but who knows whether we are achieving or how much you are achieving. Sometimes it may be difficult to achieve some of our targets by end of a year, but then it's important to know which one to be accelerated, which one to be given more focus, and all that will come from the feedback loop, which is one of the critical components for any monitoring. The second point I thought to bring in the technology part. Now, the entire data ecosystem and the analytical part, which feeds into this outcome monitoring, we need to bring in more technology. Today, technology is coming. There are a lot of technology being used, especially in the area where Mr. Kunal Kumar is working on the infrastructure side. Lots of GIS mapping and all things are happening. But in the social sector, the technology that is required, because I feel strongly that in years to come, and it has already started, to reach this vast geography and the vast population will be difficult for any survey or any monitoring mechanism. We have to find out alternative methods of reaching the people, reaching the households, reaching the communities. So it is important that new technologies that are available and being practiced, being used, being implemented, are brought into our Indian data ecosystem. Some of these are like text processing. In the Western world, poverty estimation is largely going through image processing rather than going through, the consumption expenditure survey that we do. So lots of these technologies are required. I think some more focus need to be brought into this area of technology and innovation drives. The other is community monitoring. Now, if we are talking about localizing your outcomes and outputs, it's important that we bring in the community to monitor the entire process. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare did start this community monitoring when they did the National Rural Health Mission in 2005. I believe some part of it did go, but I think we have to rejuvenate this process of community-based monitoring. The last is, how do you reach the last mile, leaving no one behind, as we say in our SDG philosophy? That would require a lot of disaggregation of whatever information. Now, if I am building a bridge, or if I am building a sewerage line, how that is, helping the most disadvantaged population is something that we should know. Because ultimately, whatever infrastructure that we are building, whatever smart cities that we are building, it is for the benefit of the citizen, the common man, the poor, the marginalized. So can we translate that kind of an infrastructure development and see how it translates for the poor and the marginalized? So I thought I will pick up some of these points and look forward to some more suggestions from the participants. As I said in the beginning, you're welcome to send your questions to us. We'll try and get back to you, and we will try and get back to our eminent panelists who took time from their busy schedule and could give us so much of knowledge and enlightening us. I would fail in my duty if I don't thank all the panelists who could take time and come to us, enlighten us. I also like to thank all the participants who joined here. And at the same time, I would like to thank my colleagues in Niti Aayog, especially Akhilesh and Nikita, who really supported me all throughout in the last 7 days. We have been interacting, talking, and devising this entire webinar. Thank you all. Thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Akhilesh. And thank you so much to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.